So I noticed this little guy today, and it started a thing with mystery snails. I love mystery snails. I think they're some of the most amazing snails in the world. Now, I get yelled at once in a while because from time to time when we have a large batch of them, I feed some of them to my green-spotted puffers, because the puffers love mystery snails too, just in a very different way. But this guy is going around cleaning between the rocks. Now, those rocks are pretty good size, but they're small enough gaps that the other fish really can't get down into them. And I overfeed the heck out of this tank because there are a couple of black ghost knives in here, and they compete for food. And if I don't overfeed it, everybody will freaking starve to death. But so there's a lot of extra food left over that gets caught between the rocks. The thing that interests me is how these snails are so graceful and so capable of getting into these little crevices. As you can see, this guy, his big shell gets in the way, and yet he reaches out and stretches down into this crevice to get this leftover food to help clean up this spot in the tank. You can see one of the ghost knives back there in the background. That's the little guy trying to slip in and out of the rocks. And he does a pretty good job of it, but he doesn't fit like the snails do. It just amazes me how big and clunky and round these guys are, and yet how graceful and capable they are of slipping into the slightest crevices to extract food with their mouths. Watching them roll over these rocks like this in such a graceful manner is just incredible to me. I mean, they're snails, for God's sakes, you know? Like, you don't think of snails as graceful, but they are. And they do some of the most amazing things if you take the time to just sit and watch them. The brown guy in the back of this shot here is doing exactly the same thing, slipping around, finding little crevices to extract food from, cleaning the rocks as he goes along. I just love these guys. There's probably 12 snails in this tank. All of them are fairly good size, quarter size. They'll get to be 3 inches as they continue to grow. But see this guy here crawling along the sand, cleaning up the little bits. You know what I've noticed? It's funny. In the flake food, they all like all of the colors except for the red. And here we go. Here's a treat. So that big snail right there just crawled onto this plant to use it as a parachute to get to the bottom. I thought they were trying to eat the plants, but they don't eat them. They don't like them. They're more carnivorous than they are omnivorous. I mean, they will eat vegetation if they have to, but they'd much rather eat meat. So then he lets go of the plant and it just floats up. They do this all the time. This is not like a one-time thing. It's not an accident. They totally do it on purpose. And this guy goes back to cruising along the bottom and cleaning it up, making sure there's just nothing left on the bottom to ruin this tank. I may never have to do a water change on this tank. This is another guy just gracefully cruising over the rocks, leaves the plants alone, cleans up the surfaces of the white rocks. There's never algae on them. Eats every little last bit of food. He's actually back by that small black ghost knives house. He lives back behind those plants. And this guy has cruised back now across the rocks in this direction, and he'll turn around and go back the other way once again, and he'll keep crisscrossing these rocks until they're perfectly clean. I know it's not fast, but if you take the time to watch, they get all over the tank. They get all over everywhere, and they move with such grace that you just hardly even notice they're there. And yet, the whole while, they're doing this amazing job of keeping things clean and providing for themselves and just being beautiful creatures. They work the glass too. You know, I mean, they keep the sand clean, keep the rocks clean, keep the glass clean. Like, anybody who thinks that snails are a pest, I don't really understand. They, 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 they do the job that you would have to do if they weren't there. They keep everything in perfect balance. And they're beautiful. I mean, like, people consider them unsightly. Oh, and then there's this guy. That's Goldilocks. And he's a bit of an attitude. We like him a lot. He's really pretty, but he is kind of a punky guy. And this guy's heading back across the rocks again to go the other direction to make sure he didn't miss anything. God, I love these guys. Check out this guy's little mouth as he cleans the glass. He's getting every single piece of algae and detritus that could ever grow on that glass. He just sucks it right off. It's freaking amazing. Snails are some of the best creatures. I know we overlook them, but we really shouldn't.